are you, my friend?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm so happy to see your face.
Yours too. Thank you.
Seen your picture, but that's it.
Well, here we are. Thanks for having me. This is awesome.
Absolutely. Yes, welcome. So, just for those watching, this is Robert, aka R.W. Harrison, author of the Onyx Seed and other beautiful works. I have only had the pleasure of reading the Onyx Seed so far, and we're going to talk about that in our second video. So, right now, we are talking about meeting this wonderful person. So, tell us a little about yourself, Mr.
Oh
Harrison.
gosh.
I know
And
it's such a
you,
broad question.
right. Well, I was born in
Yeah,
actually it is apropos because I was born in Cleveland, Ohio, and now live in Florida, but I'm moving back to Cleveland. So to be closer to family.
okay, okay.
Yeah.
So,
So so I'm on the road right now, doing this from my son's house in Columbus. So,
okay.
uh,
So you left the retirement state to go back
yes,
up.
yes, to go
Gotcha.
back to snow and cold. Yes,
Hopefully you don't have to shovel it.
I probably will in a few months, but
Right.
that's okay. Um, let's see. Professional wise, I've been in marketing most of my life and came to writing. Well, the Onyx Seed came out in 2014. And it took about 3 years to write, some research, and I've written 4 other books since then and have a couple more in the works. So,
Awesome. That's beautiful. I also want to say that my friend here also did my cover for my book recently, and I was very grateful for that. It came out beautiful. And so that is also a thing that I'm
yep, that's a growing business for me, is doing uh, author services, including cover design and formatting, and proofreading, things like that. So that's really taken off, and that's very gratifying because I love helping new authors bring their dreams to market, and that's very exciting for me. It's almost as gratifying as publishing my own books. So
Oh, that's awesome. I felt that from you because I was in dire straits whenever I had actually paid someone to do the cover, and then it got all the way to the end. It had been a frustrating experience. It got to the end and then it wasn't the right size. And I was just like, does anyone know how to change the size? Put it out on Facebook for the world. And I was like,
yeah.
somebody there, how do you do this? And you were very gracious to come in and say, I can help with that. So, and ended up changing it and making it even more beautiful and eye-catching. And so it was
Well,
very,
good.
I can show it to you. Hold on. So we started here. Uh-oh, got one of
There we
those
go.
weird backgrounds.
Oh, yeah.
It's not me. It's my book. It's my book. Okay. You can almost see that. That's the one that's old anyway.
Right.
There we go.
There we go.
Okay, there it works out. This is the one that Mr. Harrison did for me, and it is beautiful. And it turned out
Thank
well
you.
for the audiobook version and the paperback and hardback. So that
Yep.
was
Yep.
very helpful. So,
And
and
I
this
did
cover, yeah, go ahead.
well, and I did my own, which which you can see as the background, and
Yes,
on your end. So,
yes,
and
I
it's
love that cover.
it's
It's very
and it's
catchy.
funny. If I can jump in, they offer, like, one of the rules, the quote unquote rules, is an author should never do their own cover. Um, but I do have the graphic design skills, so I'm confident. I mean, I'm not an illustrator, so I can't illustrate, but I can certainly put together elements of existing art, like when I helped you with yours. So
Yes. And I mean, what is creativity if not teamwork, right?
absolutely right, collaboration. Yeah.
Yes, collaboration, exactly. Yes, this one, I actually like when I saw this picture. Yeah, there you go. When I saw this, I saw the lamp, I saw the dresser and the train. And it wasn't until I showed the book to my partner that she said, "Oh, look at the shadow." And I was like, "What? Oh, little boy." That I'm like, I
Yeah.
didn't even see that, I totally missed the shadow of the person on the dresser. So yeah, that
So
was
if I can tell you how that came about, a friend of mine is a professional photographer, and I knew I wanted the dresser on the cover because the dresser is an integral part of the story. So he took the dresser to his home studio and took like literally 1,000 pictures of it from all different angles. And he did the the shadow of the window in the background. He did that in studio. Um, the light coming from the drawer, that was a fluorescent light that he put inside the drawer. Um, he
nice.
found an old baseball and some of the toys that are on there that his kids or something had. And the only thing that was added, and he did the boy's shadow on the front, that was done in studio. The
Nice.
only thing that was added were the inscription on the surface of the dresser. That was done in Photoshop.
And up until I read in the book that part, I'm not going to spoil it because I'm going to do that for the next video, but I thought it was just a design on the dresser.
Right. No,
So,
it's
so yeah,
something
it didn't
far
even,
far more insidious.
yes, absolutely. It didn't even cross my mind that it was anything other than just like the design, and
Yeah.
yeah, that was definitely interesting.
And the dresser, it's a quote unquote haunted dresser. Um,
Mhm.
and I still have the dresser. I've had it all my life, and my father had it before me, and so
Wow. So that dresser itself is the haunted dresser?
according to a psychic, yes.
Wow. In real life. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. I love it. And it's funny, like I'm such an analyzer, and I was looking at the toys on the dresser. I was like, okay, looking for the meaning in the story, like how it ties in.
So in that instance, there's no meaning. It was just
Yeah.
random. It's what my photographer friend had laying around.
Well,
So
I'm sure I applied meaning at some point. I
right.
train the train came in at some point, and
Okay. Yeah,
I
true.
applied something to the little teepee looking thing.
Yeah.
I can't remember what part it was, but oh yes, I do. I remember now. But yeah, so I had a little connections in my head. That's funny. But I told you that I was reading the book on the plane. I was on a
Mhm.
trip to Las Vegas in October of last year. We're recording right now in April, and I read the book on the train on the plane, and I was loving it. And then I got home, and it's like I just got distracted by other things and
Sure.
everything. And so then I took another trip in April and or in March, and I started reading it again. And so I finally finished it. It should not have taken me that long. It's not. This is, not a super long story, but I started reading it again, and I felt like, and I'll expand on this more later, but I felt like I read the first part of the story in October, and I read the second part of the story in March.
Right.
So yeah, I have enjoyed it.
Well, I'm glad.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's very gratifying to to hear. And
So
what I really enjoyed was getting your like real-time commentary through Messenger to me, like, don't go in that room.
yeah, right. Why? Don't do that.
No,
Why?
don't do
Why
that.
would
Right.
you? Oh, yes, I have so much fun with authors who respond. I love
Yeah.
that. I love being able to say, this is driving me crazy. This author, I mean, this character is,
Yeah.
it's a lot of fun. And so yeah, now are you planning on writing a sequel? Have you written?
There is a sequel. There's actually two more in the series already out. This first one is the Onyx Seed, and then the second one takes place, I think, 20 or so years ahead, and that's Onyx Rising. And then another 20 years or so is the last book, Onyx Nightmare. And that wraps
Ooh.
up the trilogy.
Well, let's just wrap it up with a nightmare. That sounds
Right.
interesting. So Seed and Rising and Nightmare.
Yep.
Okay. That's a good, I like that trilogy of titles.
And the third book, the Onyx Nightmare, it took me a year to really even get it off the ground. I just had like this horrendous writer's block, and I just shelved it and just forgot about it for a while. And then because I just couldn't come up with a plot that I was happy with. And then I literally had a nightmare one night and
Oh,
woke
wow.
up from it and realized the nightmare that I had, that's the plot, that's the storyline. So I
Oh,
feverishly wrote down notes before I forgot it all
right.
and started writing immediately. So
Oh, that's fascinating. Yeah, I've definitely got to dive in now to the next ones. Do you have any plans for it to go like on Audible or anything? Audiobooks?
not at this point. For a self-published author, it's pretty expensive to get an audio book done. However, I do know people,
You do. You
right?
do know people. Yeah, I was gonna say I went the cheap route and did mine myself. I was like, but I had the blessing of having a partner who was willing to do a piece of it, and a
Yeah.
friend of mine at work is a narrator. But so I love that it's a trilogy. I definitely, because the end of the Onyx Seed definitely left some open lines that could be connected
And
later.
it's funny you say that, because I had every intention of it just being a standalone book. And then I was just going to go write something else totally unrelated. And as I got further into the book, writing it, I really enjoy these characters. And they have more, I felt like they had more of a story to tell. So I didn't quite, it's not really a cliffhanger. I mean, everything is wrapped up, but as you pointed out, there is that one little opening.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, this is how I'll change it to leave it open for the next book. So
Yes. Yes. And I love it because you're right. It could be a standalone
yep.
and just leave you, because at first when I finished it, I didn't realize it was a trilogy, and I actually looked it up today to get the screenshot for my background, and
Right.
I was like, it says trilogy. Are they written, or is it just like a future thing? So
No,
that's
it's yep,
but
they're all
yeah,
published.
it definitely could stand alone.
I think
And
so.
have that little mystery at the end.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. You mentioned you had written some more other books.
Yeah, I've written my fourth book was called Raven's Temple, and it takes place in Florida, modern day, and it's the story of a serial killer who belongs to a cult which promises immortality.
Ooh.
And the genesis of that was years ago here in Ohio, where I am now, up near Cleveland. There's a large park and covers thousands of acres. And a friend and I in high school went hiking and discovered these ruins of an old house. It was just the foundation, like a couple layers of stone, and then a really tall chimney, like 20 feet high, and nothing else. And just in the middle of the woods, no road. And it was really kind of spooky, kind of creepy. And that was in high school. And that scene, and I've revisited the place several times since. And that scene just called to me. It's like there has to be a story here. I have to come up with some sort of story. Now, I did some research a few years ago and wrote to the Cleveland Metro Parks, one of their naturalists or historians, I think. And I said, hey, in this particular park, there's this house. What's the story? And they wrote back immediately, and it turns out it's an old sugar mill.
Oh, wow.
back in the late 1800s in the Cleveland area, there were a lot of maple trees and they tapped them for sugar. So it was a sugar house and made of wood. And of course, the wood fell down and decomposed, but the brick and the stone remain. So I thought that would make a good story, and I certainly enjoyed writing that. My latest book, which I happen to have here,
Nice.
is The Ghost of Witch's Point, and it's a novella, 130 pages, and it asks the question, can you fall in love with a ghost?
Ooh.
So
That's neat. I interviewed George Norman Lippert a couple of years ago, and one thing in one of his stories, and a couple of his stories, I think, is ghosts that actually can touch you, and they can move things, like a real person. And I remember two of the characters sat down, one of them being the ghost, and the human talking to him said, I didn't know that ghosts could touch, and the ghost was like, well, why not? And it was like, oh, why not? Like, I've never thought about that. We just always told that, or it's in the media, they're just
exactly. You see movies and they're floating and going through walls and not and going through people, and which is what I have in my book. The ghost can't really be felt. It's not corporeal, I guess. It can't be touched or manifested, which has always kind of puzzled me. Like why doesn't the ghost sink through the floor, but they can pass through a wall?
Yeah. That's a very good point. That's funny. I was going to ask you something. What was it? So the Ghost of Witch's Point, the Raven's Temple, and then the Onyx Seed trilogy. Right.
And that's what's already published. I have two more in the works. One is, it's actually, so Witch's Point, again, was just designed to be a standalone and actually available. I wanted to make it available for free on my website as a download. So folks can go to my website, download the ebook for free. The paperback is available on Amazon for, I think, $6.95 or something pretty nominal. And I just thought it would be just a standalone, just a one and done, but kind of the same with the Onyx book. I really enjoyed the characters. So I'm writing a prequel to it. The ghost in the story, Susanna, I'm going to write her story before she died, before she became a ghost.
Nice. Oh yeah, that's cool. That's a neat perspective. That's what I was thinking about, was how you approach the stories. Like you said, you enjoyed the characters. You feel like they still had story to tell. I love when an author takes that approach. Like, I'm not just forcing these stories on these characters. This is their story and they're telling it to me.
Yeah, that's I guess I approach, I have a loose idea of the plot when I start, but then then I populate the story with the characters, and sometimes they just have more of a story to tell. Now, Raven's Temple was, I don't know that I'll go back to that. I think everything was pretty much wrapped up nicely. I think if I tried to do something beyond that, it would be forced, and the readers would probably tell and wouldn't like it as much. So that one will probably just be the one book. But Witch's Point, definitely there's some more stories to tell. In that book also, I incorporate, I always do a lot of research on my books. I think it's important I guess as a reader, I like when the author does some research and gets things right. So in the Onyx Seed, I incorporate a lot of Filipino folklore and did a ton of research on that, and not having known anything about Filipino mythology and folklore. Um, and Raven's Temple, I did a lot of research on cults, and in Witch's Point, I incorporated a book called the Picatrix, which is an ancient Arabic book of spells and astrology. And from like, I don't know, 500 years ago or so. And bought a copy of the book, and it's only recently made it into an English translation. So I picked up little things from there, and the prequel will feature that book a lot more.
Neat.
And then the other book I featured in Witch's Point is The Search for Bridie Murphy, which came out in the mid-50s. And it was the story of a hypnotist who took one of his patients back to her childhood and then before her childhood. So she became Bridie Murphy, this girl in Ireland in the 1800s. And so the book describes the regressive hypnosis and how, past lives, reincarnation. So I incorporate a lot of that into Witch's Point.
That is fascinating. I love that idea. I remember seeing a TV show one time. I think it was just called Past Lives or something like that. And people would be just going about their daily lives, and then all of a sudden they would kind of switch and revert to whatever their past life person was. And then they were like going about living that life, and then they would switch back and be like, where am I? And so I remember like walking out to my car one day and thinking, which life am I living right now? Am I me, or have I switched?
Right. That's funny.
But yeah, that was interesting. I actually have a speaking of like writing from, like you feel the characters and you feel like they have more of a story to tell. I had a story that started just kind of coming to me one time, and I started writing it. And it was funny because one of the characters I had named Colleen. And as I continued to write, it was like I had this little voice over my shoulder, and she said, I am called Connie. And I was like, excuse me, like Colleen is her name, but she goes by Connie.
Right.
And so
And she
I
told
had
you
to
that.
like change it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, well, you didn't tell me that in the beginning.
That's what's interesting is, and I've talked to, dozens of authors, and because I thought when I started writing the Onyx Seed, my very first book, and, I'd go a couple of weeks maybe without writing anything. And I felt the characters calling to me, and I felt like if I didn't write, I was letting them down. And I thought, okay, that's kind of like psychotic, like because they are just fictitious characters and they're just in my head. But I've talked to many authors who feel the same. They feel guilty if they aren't writing at least regularly, somewhat regularly, and getting their characters' stories down on paper, or the equivalent.
Yeah, and I love that. Lippert described his writing style as he felt like he was an archaeologist. He said like he went out and looked at a hill, and like he could see the outline of a Tyrannosaurus Rex's bones, and he knew it was there, but he had to go uncover it.
Yeah,
That was his job.
I've heard that analogy before, like a sculptor with a stone, and envisions what's inside and chips away at it and polishes it and finally comes up with the piece of art.
Yes, I love that because I feel like so much art, whether it's art, writing, theater, painting, everything has a common core. It's like that source of creativity, that source of
Right.
life and passion, that comes together. And it's like, to me, part of what I write in my book actually is that we all share that source, and we all come from that same source of, goodness. And I feel like our passions, if we let them free, we would understand each other more, and we would really be able to. It's like a writer goes to a play and they get it. It's
Right.
like I see where you came up with that, and then someone from the theater goes to a symphony and they're like, oh, I feel that because of, it's like you feel it if you involve yourself in it.
And I think everybody, even if they don't consider themselves an artist in one way or another, or even creative, I think everybody has that spark of creativity in them. And they just don't know it, perhaps. So
Yes,
we,
exactly.
people like you and I were lucky that we discovered that within ourselves. But I think everybody has it to some degree.
I have a friend who is not, she says, I'm not artistic, I don't write, I don't whatever, but she is a manager and she comes up with the organization for how to get everybody working together. And I'm like, that is an art in itself, being able to manage people. that is not
Absolutely.
that is not art that is in my blood. you know. I tried that for a year and a half and I was like, nope, I'm gonna just write and narrate. like these are my strengths. But yeah, but I think that, a lot of people have those tech jobs and they're building
Right.
websites or even Excel spreadsheets that they have to get organized and put into charts. Things like that. It's like that is creativity. You
100%.
may not bring it to a theater, but that doesn't mean it's not creative.
Right.
So we have 3 minutes until 7 o'clock when I'm supposed to talk about the book, but I'm excited and I want to talk about the book.
Okay.